In a developer discussion posted on April 29, 2021, MiHoYo officially stated that they are currently testing adjustments to how certain elemental reactions work, with the objective of increasing the role that these reactions play in combat. These changes will affect electrocharged, superconduct, overload, swirl, shatter, and crystallize at the very least, as well as adjust how damage scales with elemental mastery. Right away, you can tell that the focus is not on Pyro and Cryo, since it's pretty universally agreed upon that both are in good spots right now. Although these potential changes are most likely in preparation for the eventual release of the Electro Archon, they are very welcomed by the community because Electro as an element has been a point of discussion for a while now. But why exactly does Electro feel off from a conceptual and gameplay design perspective? In this video, I want to find out precisely what Electro's problems are and what can be done to fix them through Genshin's only Electro 5-star, Keqing. As always, you can play the game however you feel like you have fun, but I think it's important to investigate issues like these and how they affect the gameplay experience for the general player base. But before we begin, Keqing has a special message for us.
Come on, enough procrastinating. Let's go.
That's admittedly a good motto to live by, but let's be real, we all love to procrastinate. Whether it be watching videos or just browsing social media as the deadlines for our homework slowly approach. But no matter what I'm doing online, I make sure to stay safe using today's video sponsor, NordVPN. With just a click of a button, it seamlessly encrypts all of the data you share across the internet on any website. This works to protect all of your precious personal information. At the same time though, it also provides great connection speeds and strong security protocols, all at a reasonable price point. With over 5,400 servers in 59 countries, you can change your virtual location to take advantage of better speeds and on any device, whether it be your computer or your phone. Even though two-factor authentication was recently added to Genshin, that is no excuse to not practice good cybersecurity. If this interests you, go to nordvpn.com/redflame or use code REDFLAME to get a 2-year plan with a large discount plus 1 additional month for free. Huge thank you to NordVPN for supporting the channel. Electro really feels like it's a neglected element at this point. Although Hydro has the least amount of characters currently in the game, they have 2 5-stars, one of which is a limited banner character. Electro, on the other hand, has 1 more character total, but only has 1 5-star from the standard banner. Although we have gotten teasers for new characters who seem to be Electro, this game has been out for 8 months now and we have no real news of when one will actually be ready to play. MiHoYo's reluctance to develop and release a new Electro character could be due to any number of reasons, but it comes off as them not wanting to build a character around an element that doesn't feel as good to play. Overload, Electrocharged, and Superconduct are damage-based reactions, meaning they lack the sheer utility that Swirl and Crystallize have. However, they still pale in comparison to Melt and Vaporize because of the way that reaction damage is calculated in Genshin. Melt and Vaporize are considered amplifying reactions, and their damage is based on a character's attack and elemental mastery stats, which is then multiplied by 1.5 times or 2 times depending on the order of elements applied. But arguably the most important mechanic of amplifying reactions is that they can crit. Crit is something you pretty much always want to be building because it increases the overall damage of your character by so much. Electro, meanwhile, only has transformative reactions, which only scale with character level and elemental mastery. That's right, a character's attack does not influence its damage at all, and on top of that, they can never crit. So in summary, Melt and Vaporize benefit from the stats which you already want to be building. Meanwhile, Overload, Electrocharged, and Superconduct can only really be built through elemental mastery, meaning you would have to be sacrificing your other stats to get more damage from Electro reactions. So even though Electro has weak reactions, there must be some other parts of its gameplay that feel bad too, right? Well, yes, but also no. The thing is that the reactions are the foundation upon which other problems are created from. So let me explain what I mean by that. Elemental resonances are not always something you need to be actively considering when creating a team composition, but they tend to be very useful. Electro reactions do not directly benefit from any other element's resonance because, as mentioned, it only scales with level and elemental mastery. So because of this limitation, you would think that Electro's high voltage would have its own strong resonance, but it just doesn't. Instead of granting a flat percentage of energy recharge to your party like how other resonances give stats, you are guaranteed an Electro energy particle whenever an Electro reaction is performed on a 5-second cooldown. So the advantage that this resonance brings ultimately relies on these weak reactions. But another part of the resonance which I feel unnecessarily hinders it is the fact that the elemental particle generated will always be Electro. This means that characters in the party who are not Electro only receive 1/3 of the energy in comparison. For reference, non-elemental particles give twice as much energy compared to those of a different element. This makes High Voltage the only resonance that directly heavily favors characters of its own element over characters of other elements. Even though Geo's Enduring Rock decreases enemy Geo resistance, any character of any element can greatly benefit from the 15% increased shield strength and 15% increased damage dealt when shielded. High Voltage just seems so strange to me because why would I want to use this resonance which isn't that great to begin with when it also doesn't benefit the party as much as others do. Another issue with poor elemental reactions as its root is the Electro artifact sets. Our two options are the Thundering Fury set and the Thunder Soother set. The latter of which is typically seen as undesirable because its 2-piece set bonus increases Electro resistance by 40%. Let's be honest, there will probably never be an enemy in the game that does so much Electro damage to the point where you would actually want this over another set. The 4-piece set bonus increases damage against opponents affected by Electro by 35%, which despite requiring you to play around it a bit, is pretty good because the Electro element is not instantly consumed upon its reactions. It's really just that using it means your 2-piece set bonus is essentially wasted. So that leaves Thundering Fury to be the ideal set, with its 2-piece bonus granting 15% bonus Electro damage. But its 4-piece set bonus increases damage caused by Electro reactions by 40%, and triggering this decreases your elemental skill cooldown by 1 second every 0.8 seconds. This should be really good because of how inaccessible cooldown reduction is in Genshin Impact. The only things which can universally apply cooldown reduction are Chongyun's second constellation and the Impetuous Wind's elemental resonance. So this set allowing for constant use of elemental skills would be good if it weren't held back by its transformative reactions. In short, having poor elemental reactions creates fundamental weaknesses across the board for characters in this game and especially for Electro. Yes, I promise that this video actually is in fact about Keqing. So far, everything I've mentioned applies to all Electro characters in the game, so why do I want to talk about her specifically? Well, it's because she's in a bit of a strange spot as one of the 5 standard banner 5 stars. She doesn't have the raw damage potential that Diluc and Mona have, while also not having the utility that Jean and Chi-Chi can bring to the team. Additionally, within the Electro element, Keqing is the only character that seems built to be a main DPS carry centered around dealing pure Electro damage. So the thing is, Keqing has all the tools to be a top tier character, yet she just falls short because she is Electro. She's got an elemental skill with a short 7.5 second cooldown that provides her with an Electro infusion for 5 seconds. This, on top of her large area of effect burst, should make her a damage machine that can fully utilize Electro % damage artifacts, but she just can't get much out of her reactions. Overload causes an explosion, which can be annoying because it sends enemies away from you. Electro Charge can sometimes interrupt enemy actions and does 2 instances of damage, but that's still pretty underwhelming. And Superconduct decreases physical resistance, which won't benefit Keqing if she's dealing Electro damage. As mentioned, to get stronger damage from these, you would need to invest artifacts into Elemental Mastery, leading to less attack and crit stats for your non-reaction damage. It's pretty ironic that Keqing's Ascension stat is crit damage. Crit Ascension stats work wonders on characters like Diluc, Hu Tao, and Ganyu, who can take advantage of it while using their amplifying reactions. Even Keqing's own second Ascension passive, which increases her crit rate by 15% after her elemental burst, can't be fully utilized by her since her reactions never crit. And as mentioned, she suffers from an inferior resonance and poor artifact options. It is of note that Keqing does have versatility with multiple different viable builds, but ultimately that's not a quality very many people tend to care about. Keqing can definitely be run as a physical DPS to some success, but as stated on KeqingMains.com, it has a lower ceiling for late game damage, and stamina management is required due to reliance on charged attacks. Also, if you do happen to get constellations for her, they very clearly benefit her Electro damage playstyle and not her physical one. So will MiHoYo's changes be what Keqing needs? It seems like they are taking the best approach with buffing transformative reactions rather than nerfing amplifying reactions. However, all they said was that the damage would be increased past level 60, making it sound like they are only adjusting the base damage rather than allowing the damage to scale with attack or be able to crit. Now, I could see attack scaling being a bit too much since I don't think transformative reactions should do more damage than amplifying reactions. After all, transformative reactions provide some utility, meanwhile amplifying reactions provide none. But with how reliant strong builds are on crit stats, it's really disappointing that transformative reactions aren't able to take advantage of them. Speaking of that utility, I could see it getting adjustments as well. If you're going to need to sacrifice damage for utility, it should at least be somewhat worth that sacrifice. Overload could be changed to knock enemies upward rather than away so you don't have to chase after them. Also, maybe make it do damage based on the second element applied rather than always doing pyro. Electrocharge could be made more useful if instead of jumping only to nearby targets with the wet status, it affects any nearby enemy. In addition, the interrupted causes could have some kind of scaling so that stronger instances of the reaction can immobilize stronger enemies and maybe for longer. It would be nice if Superconduct also decreased electro resistance, but realistically it seems like it will always be the physical damage reaction. Superconduct always deals cryo damage on the initial application though, which I also think should be changed to whatever element was applied second. Lastly, we have elemental mastery scaling. I pretty much think that the numbers should just be super jacked up so that players can invest small amounts into it and still see noticeable benefits on main DPS characters like Keqing. Then for sub DPS characters like Fischl, you would want to run high elemental mastery builds so that they can do lots of damage. This would also have the effect of buffing the supports who provide elemental mastery, Sucrose and Albedo, by allowing them to fulfill a niche that their Archon counterparts don't cover. Overall, I would say that MiHoYo is definitely looking in the right direction, but I just hope that they do enough. But of course, I have to end off with some cool character details that might make you want to play Keqing, since unfortunately, she is one of 2 5-stars in the game who don't have story quests yet. She was in the Archon quest, but that really only scratched the surface of her character. From her lore, we know that she's a very strong and inspiring person. She is hardworking and will stick to her ideals even if others look down on her for them. Also, she used to dislike Rex Lapis himself before she eventually gained a sense of admiration for him. So much so, to the point where she now has a secret shelf full of Rex Lapis themed merchandise. Her official title is the Yuheng of the Liyue Qixing. Qixing literally translates to 7 stars, referring to the 7 stars which make up the constellation the Big Dipper, with Yuheng being the 5th. Another cool detail is the way Keqing uses her offhand when she uses abilities. This seems to be a martial arts technique called Qianji, directly translating to sword finger. Its uses include being a distraction for enemies, helping with aiming attacks, and being a way to balance the body when using a one-handed weapon. Lastly, I have to mention Keqing's famous hairstyle, which is commonly seen as being fake cat ears. While I can't completely reject the idea, especially given how Keqing's nimble movements are akin to a cat's, it seems to actually be inspired by Chinese tradition. The Shuangluoji, or double conch bun, actually traces back to over 2,000 years ago. While the images I could find don't exactly match up, the resemblance is definitely there. We know that there will eventually be more Electro characters to come in the future, so I think it's good that the Elements issues are going to be addressed sooner rather than later. Although we don't know how MiHoYo will go about doing it exactly, I feel like they are definitely heading in the right direction. One last thing, shout out to the Battlefront Misty Dungeon event for allowing me to record clips of Keqing since I don't actually own her. With that said, I hope this video was informative for you, and as always, thank you for watching.